Yeah, thank you, David. Interesting stuff, and I like what Paul was saying as well. Quite enlightening. But I think geopolitics, to me, was always at a state of flux with what's going on in the world. I think with the Trump 2.0 has just made that even worse. And it was interesting to hear Mr. Wag there talking about Caracas and being there. But of course, now we have Iran as well, which is the potential over the horizon. But what one of the courses I deliver is communications in a crisis. If you can get some pre-work there, and I put a stream of interviews together from crises all over the world, from flooding, train, plane, industrial, etc. And when the microphone is shoved up the nose of witnesses or people who live nearby what has ever happened, the quote is, and I've got it down here, nobody thought that this would ever happen here. And that's just regardless of what's caused that crisis, that's the response you get from the people who are there. And alarmingly, sometimes from management teams of the train company or the airport. Heathrow last March, I was stuck in Nassau. Nice place to be stuck. But again, nobody thought that would ever happen. So we can have all the expertise from the authors that you've mentioned, David, but are we actually learning? We're still in this state of flux, aren't we? We're not actually looking at the reports. We're not looking at what we should be doing for the future until it happens to us as an individual or nearby. But that's my two pence worth.
There's only one lesson that we learn from history that we do not learn from history. I mean, that's basically the lesson we learn from it. And we just loop around and we just loop around and we loop around. All I've got, I see you've got your hand up. I'm going to bring some others in and then I will come back to you. Okay. Marco, let's bring you in. And I don't know where you are now, but you were a senior military officer in the Netherlands and then doing a lot of work down in East Africa. Please.
Yeah, thanks, David. Hi all. Good evening or good morning, perhaps for some. Currently in Tunisia, David, East Africa, that book was closed, or Central Africa, East Africa was closed about 3 years ago. But talking about China, I recall I wrote, I think it was 2011, a short piece for the Dutch army. Imagine the French. I'm a Marine for those who don't know. An article about the rising influence of China in Africa, and we all know about it, about the rare minerals, etc. But of concern certainly for a naval guy, a marine guy, was an increasing sort of dominance in African ports. And I saw a steady encirclement of the African continent. And this is getting more on the forefront because in my time in East Africa, Somalia, it was mostly the eastern coast. Now we also see the southern, southwestern coast. And the article I wrote was simply, if we lose the hegemony, which is of course a slightly loaded word, of the Atlantic Ocean, things may get a little bit tricky, certainly if you think about how do you maintain sea lines of communication, because by implication they have positions in the Arabian Sea, Djibouti, so the choke points like the Suez Canal can easily be dominated, and of course the route around the Cape then also becomes threatened. Getting closer to home here in Tunisia, there is, you see very much still under the horizon overtures of both Russia and China looking at Tunisia. Russia is getting a footprint in Libya next door. Whilst they are not traditional bed partners of the Tunisian government, but as a sort of anti-reaction to what the US is doing, and maybe also a more stronger stance from the EU, they may actually shift alliance to China and who knows, Russia. This is all still speculation and very much under the horizon. But there are people that are looking at this and it gives them reason for concern. So having listened to your sort of, well, let me call it a refreshing lecture. I took some points which I use actually in the more common work I do at the moment, training and equipping the Tunisian Coast Guard. And there I sense a sense of there is insufficient awareness of, let's call it simply, risk management. And there is a large degree of denial. Oh, we know it all. We have done it before, but sorry, no, you haven't done what we are trying to bring to you.
Okay. I want to bring other people in, Marco.
So that is all valuable stuff for me to take them to a higher level. Yeah. Thanks very much for attending.
No, Mark, thank you for the support, and for this, you've been a supporter of the ISRM for many years, so we appreciate that very much. Bear, let's bring you in, and you've got of course, the Ukraine experience.
Yeah, David, I've always been closely related to an Oxford academic report that came out in 2024 that talked about Europe's shift towards being a security-centered energy transition, and its impacts on geopolitical risk and transitional fuels were always up there, up front and center. But when the report came out in 24, I think it was version 7, it was heavily amended over the first 2 years of the war where we are now. In a reactive sense, yeah, we are looking at the standard energy sources that we have here, but in a forward-thinking sense, looking at what the insights from that report say, we have to look at transitional fuels and rare earths. And we have been, certainly just lately, but we were looking in the wrong direction. America is not, the risk is to them, but America is now a threat. And I'm not surprised by it, because I've worked with the Americans for so long. Don't drop the soap and don't turn your back on them when they've got a loaded weapon. And just to show where a geopolitical map on energy and energy sources is fractured, we specialize in getting people out of hot zones. We're now being asked to take a particular group, journalists, into America and set up a contingency plan for getting them out. And America used to be a kind of an amber on that map, on a heat map, but now we're looking in certain states, red patches are cropping up. Okay. And they're all in the media. They can't run, they can't hide. So it's quite massive.
Okay.
But I wish they'd look after it, because it's -5 here. It feels like -12 with an easterly, but nevertheless, no, it's a westerly. But nevertheless, we need to fix it, and we do need to look to the future harder and faster. We don't have contingency right now.
Cheers. I mean, basically, what Trump has done, and again, it's hard because you don't want to become. People talk about that Trump deranged syndrome. I don't want to have Trump, but that is the black hole in the center of the vortex, isn't it? I mean, it really is. But what he's done is he's basically said rules don't count. I mean, rules just do not count. If I don't like the outcome of the election, I would just say it's wrong. I will put our people on the street. It's interesting to see how that moves across. It's very interesting you talk about energy, and of course, Angela Merkel, who was considered one of the really strong politicians in Europe, almost pretty much screwed up her political legacy, because she went for Nord Stream 2 with the Russians, and she said the way you neutralize or nullify the Russian threat is you bring them to your business. You do business with them. And she chose to go with them against advice, and that chose to be a bad political decision. But of course, you don't know how that's going to work out when you make that decision. I think I agree with a lot of people that we just do not have that long-term view. I'm going to bring Paul in, bring you Anita, and then we'll pretty well be through. But I want to read one thing as an academic, as a pracademic, with other academics here. I want to read one thing, and I want you to get your feel on this. So let me just bring that up. Anzeng, one moment. Yeah, got it. 3 decades ago, there was not enough theoretical material or research work on response to social crisis and disasters to have warranted more than a footnote attesting to that fact. A paragraph could have summarized all the relevant work and activity of two decades ago. Even 10 years ago, several pages might have sufficed to summarize totally the burgeoning activities in the area. The growth of the area has been exponential, not linear. And today the research efforts and theoretical advances have reached such a level as to force us to be highly selective in our coverage in this paper. So basically what they're saying is there's a level of information that is coming to us. That was written in 1973. That was written in 1973, an academic paper. And so we think that we are at the cusp, but every age, its own age, believes it's on the cusp of a new beginning. Paul, I'll bring you in, and Anita, you'll probably have the final words before we wrap up for today. Before you do bring you in, can I just thank you everybody for being here, for the 46 people, a couple of people dropped out. We had 50 people here. We had, I think, 80 people on this, 65 people on this morning. Thank you for your support. The ISRM, we're coming out to be 7 years old. March the 10th will be our 7th birthday. And when I set it up in 2019, its mission statement said that it was designed to create a platform where academics, practitioners, and policymakers could come together and have a grown-up conversation. And I think we've achieved that. Thank you to everybody for your support. Please feel free to support us. We see ourselves as a facilitating institution. If we can be of help with you, if we can support you, if there's stuff you want to do, feel free to let us know. We love collaboration. We love talking about this stuff. Our next, if those of you in London, in the UK, our next London networking event is already in the diary for 17th of March. Happy to see you there. Otherwise, do keep in touch with us. We love to be in touch. We love talking about this stuff. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. But to finish off for today, we'll come to you, Paul, and then Anita, you're going to have the final words. Right, Paul.
David, thanks very much. And what a superb discussion it's been. I've really enjoyed it. A couple of very quick points, if I may then. If I can pick up Lawrence's point about this, the expression, we didn't think it could happen here, whatever it might be, the flood or whatever. I've always seen this as a kind of willing suspension of belief, not of disbelief, but a willing suspension of belief in my work in defense policy. A suspension of belief in the possibility that could be violent conflict or war or whatever you like. And amazingly, you see this. I sense it as an anchor in UK defence policy, in European defence policy, except of course the Netherlands because they're always on the ball. But there's this sort of gravity really that holds people back from thinking beyond the immediate future, thinking longer term and contemplating the worst case. Because of course you need to contemplate. You need to have belief in that possibility and prepare for it, because that's what we call deterrence. And we know that deterrence is cheaper than fighting a war. Yet we never seem to make that cognitive leap. As far as China and the Belt and Road Initiative is concerned, I completely agree. I can't remember who was talking about that. It might have been Bear, I think. Interestingly, there is some pushback. China realizes it might have overextended. I beg your pardon, it was you, Marco, it was you, wasn't it? Yeah, I beg your pardon, nodding. It realizes it's overextended. It realizes there's a certain amount of pushback coming from, further and further across Africa. I know less of Africa than you do, only Tanzania, but which of course has been of huge interest to China. And that's why I think they're beginning to adjust their, in quotes, offering. They're starting to realize they need to employ more locals rather than shipping in thousands of Chinese, as you know better than I do. So it's interesting that there's a slightly changed dynamic there. And then finally, Trump and the derangement syndrome. I think what we've seen there, or are seeing, is that what Trump is doing is going beyond geopolitics for the simple reason he doesn't believe in the geo, apart from the US. So the whole thing, basically, he's not interested in diplomacy or in international politics, whatever you want. He's simply interested in the US. And that is this massive shock that's rippling around and nobody knows what to do with it.
The question is, Paul, whether it's a historical blip or it's a paradigm change. It is a paradigm change, it is a rupture, which we will know in 20 years' time. I mean, we will know. Lawrence, cheers to you. Thank you. For those of you going, Anita, I know that people have very tight schedules. We do try and keep time, but I will bring you in. You have the final word.
Just on Merkel, the other issue was around migration, and basically the mistake with retrospect in allowing so many people, which brought about the pushback and the political far right policies that we're seeing across Eastern Europe. So with retrospect, although it was for the best of intentions, it's caused a problem. The bigger issue is the climate crisis, and how do we handle that? We still haven't got problems because the migrants are still going to keep coming. So we're, again, to your point, we're not really addressing the fundamental problems. We're looking short term, political, economic challenges. We need to look at the social and environmental.
Somebody said to me 30 years ago, he said, if you want to change things in the world, don't do politics, forget politics. There's two things you have to understand. You have to understand economics and demographics. Yeah. Because that allows you to look 30 years ahead. And that the immigration thing has become the disruptor, the disruptor of our, I don't think there's a country which has sorted itself out correctly. And that is a challenge for all of us. Can I say thank you to everybody for being here? It's great. Thank you for your support. We'll be doing it again next month. As you know, there's a massive amount of stuff we do out of the ISRM. We enjoy doing it. We enjoy doing it with you. Please do keep in touch with us. Stay safe wherever you are. And we'll see you hopefully next month as well. Thanks to everybody.